That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Ramer. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. Shout out to Humans Music for bringing us in today. Always appreciate those guys. If you're looking for ways to quit drinking, become a better father, husband, leader, entrepreneur, you can go to thatsoberguy.com. While you're there, join our free online men's community, the Victory Circle. You can connect and network with others all over the country who are living life free from alcohol. Be sure to follow us on X at That Sober Guy Pod and on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. All the links from today's show will be in the show notes, so they're very easy for you to find. Really excited to finally connect today with our guest. His name is Garet Mclendon. And Garet took on a life on the streets and started selling drugs at a very young age. He stopped going to high school in the 9th grade and eventually got involved in gangs. And he spent the next 15 years in and out of prison, caught in a vicious cycle of addiction and crime. And Garet arrived at a treatment center on March 17th, 2013. And he's been sober ever since, and it's really great to have him on the podcast today. Our sobriety dates are very close, by the way. I just noticed that. I'm September 2013. You're just a few months before me, man. So congrats on that, and it's really great to have you on the podcast today, bro.
Well, thanks for having me on the podcast, man. It's, no matter whatever happens in life, man, I got more time than you. It doesn't matter,
That's very true. Yes,
That's
sir.
right, dude. That's how it goes,
Man,
so yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's good. It's good to finally connect, like I mentioned, and excited to hear some of your story today and what's going on today, how you've remained sober. Real quick, before we kick it off, we were chopping it up before we started recording today. You're down in Santa Clarita, California, and there's some gnarly fires going down right there. So just wanted to make sure you're doing all good. What's going on that tip? Is everyone safe? And how are you dealing with that? And is it madness or what's the deal?
It was, I at one point I walked outside from my job. I saw what looked to be like, I thought it was like rain clouds coming over the horizon. I was like, damn, rain's coming. And then it was just bumbles. It was smoke, dude. And it just got heavier and heavier. And then, friends are calling me, people are calling me, and then, evacuations. And then, the school calls me and they're like, hey, school, you have to pick up your son. And it's one thing, like, a lot of people who I see, like a lot of people who are nowhere close to the fire are like, doing all this stuff. And like, man, when you're in it and the school, like your kid, and then like the look on their face, when you pick them up, from like a parking lot, a Walmart parking lot. And then I went and like, and then you go into your neighborhood. And since we have all these fires going on, like everybody's like, prepping and preparing and getting ready. And it's really, you start really seeing that just catastrophe and stuff, and it's just like, wow. And the best thing about it, man, is like, I get home, I'm watching everything. I'm in this evacuation mode and all this stuff, man. And my son hops on his little electric motorcycle, man, and he did his first donut, and I was.
So having that kind of realization in the middle of just a gnarly fire, and your son's like, "Dude, I'm just gonna whip a donut real quick," like a little bit, bring a little fun to some madness, I guess, in perspective.
Yeah. This brings you into the moment, man. We get so lost about all this other stuff, man, that like just being right there, right now in that moment, man, was just like, was like, boom, I'm all right. I'm all right today,
That's good. That's good.
Cars in my name, the house is in my name, and insurances are in place. Like, I have stuff to actually grab and put in my car. I got clothes in there. Or I'm not in the dirty clothes hamper inside my car. I'm not scrambling to think about my next drink, hit or fix. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh crap, better call the connection. I'm getting evacuated. That would have been my go-to. And so I'm just grateful, man. Very grateful, man. I was thinking this. I was like, how am I going to get my Harley out of the house? Multiple. Today I got multiple cars, bikes, and toys, and just grateful, man. Just grateful, man.
I love it, bro. I can't. You reminded me of something. I can't remember. I can't count how many times, like the first couple of years when I was sober, I still drove around and was constantly on edge, like looking in my mirrors and like watching, even though I had insurance and I had a license and I didn't have any like illegal stuff in the car. I was so used to driving like that. It took some time to like, oh yeah, I'm actually like taking care of business. I'm responsible somewhat. I do have insurance. You know, it takes time to kind of catch up, man. It's kind of crazy when you see it from that perspective.
Yeah, it took me I had 168 traffic tickets, dude. I lost more cars than people had in a lifetime. Like I had to have, like, I was like the DMV in the state of California that seen me as like mentally retarded and incapable of having a driver's license.
Wow.
And it took me a lot of work to get to that point.
Yeah.
But like that's the little stuff, man. Like, I did all the community service, the DUI classes, the breathalyzers, I had to go see a doctor and get the physicals done and all this stuff. And like the beater after, I had a beater after a beater. And I remember being on, I still to this day, sometimes when like, I'm on my phone and a cop pops up behind me or something like that, man, I still feel it like, oh man, I still get it like, wait a second, I'm good today, man. I'm good today, and I'm grateful for that, man.
It's good, man. How old is your son?
He's 5.
Oh, nice, man.
5 years old.
He's
in
a little
kindergarten.
dude. Nice, man. Isn't that great to be a dad and be sober and, like you mentioned earlier, present and in the moment? It's like such like a great gift, to be able to experience that and be there for your son, I'm sure.
No, I believe having this little guy, I got full custody of my youngest son. I got 3 kids. I got a daughter in college. I got an 8-year-old that lives with his mom, and I got full custody of my 5-year-old. He lives with me, and I believe that everything that I did not know about love and compassion and all that stuff that I'm 100% learning right now as being a dad and being present in his life, man. Because I missed that for my daughter's life. In and out of the system and all that stuff, and stuff with my my other son. Stuff didn't work out that way, but with my youngest son, man, like Man, I'm making breakfast, doing homework. I'm picking him up from school, like doing all this stuff, man. And it's something about it, that bond right there is just priceless, man. Priceless bond.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love to hear it. And you mentioned, or I mentioned even in the intro, in and out of prison and just kind of a rough life growing up. Let's kind of back up a little bit then. And can you share some of that? Like what was that like growing up? What led you going into prison? And, just give us a little synopsis of that.
Yeah, I'll give you
life.
Man. I grew up, parents divorced that, like I was around my son's age now when my parents got divorced. And, and it's hard to say, an alcoholic dad, an alcoholic and drug using mom. My dad was full functioning. My mom, I thought for a long time was full functioning. Because I had a roof over my head. Like you don't know until like the way I was living. Mom going around, boyfriend, or boyfriend, or this house to this house, to moving around every few months, and drugs and that chaos was just like part of the life. My mom dragged me around from dope house to dope house, or connection to connection, she picked me up from school or whatever like that. I go to connection's house. I wait there while they sat in the room. I go home, like I didn't know, like, you're just a kid, you're just rolling with it. And, start drinking and stuff. And like it wasn't like you weren't thinking that this substance was going to have a hold on me like it did. I didn't think that. I used to watch my parents fight, or I see, like I knew like they'd be on doing lines, or they'd leave a mirror with residue on it in the bathrooms and stuff. And I remember like coming out with a mirror and being like, and just being, as a kid, 8, 9 years old, maybe, and being like, I'll never do this. This is, just being all, crazy kid, that finds that stuff and yelling at his parents and stuff and taking off and getting mad. And by the time I was 13 years old, 11, 12, 13 years old, you're we're going out, having a little, drinking little bonfire, motorcycle rides with a bottle of peppermint schnapps, and then and like by this time, in junior high, like my mom is like, she's leaving that mirror in my room, and with the lines on it, and
Wow.
and like my friends would come over and I pull it out, and we do it a little bit, and it was nothing, but I remember the day that I mean, like her connection, or her guy was like a father figure to me growing up, and he was
Yeah.
in the game.
Yeah.
And I was attracted to that. I don't know if it was just the father figure of him, or whatever it was, but I was attracted to his lifestyle. He had all that stuff we didn't have: a nice house, multiple pool tables, multiple cars, motorcycles, people, and just like, damn, and it was attractive. It was very attractive at that young age. And my first day of high school, man, I'm loaded. I'm going there. I'm learning means and ways I'm learning means and ways to hustle, man, to make a dollar, to get what I need. And whether it was supporting my habit, or getting a pair of shoes, or giving my mom some money for some food for her and my little sister, or whatever it was. And then like, things happened. And my mom, like, I to this day, maybe now that I think about it, sometimes I think that she got pulled over, and like she got busted with some stuff, and then she
Yeah.
went to jail, but like I they didn't tell me as a kid. And I went from living out in like the country and to living up in town. And like, that's when it really started for me. Then I really met some people doing the stuff I liked, and I got fully involved, man. I was selling $5 bullet shots in high school. I was selling weed, and it just, everything escalated. And I was hanging out with the guys that were in the game, and gang members. And I was onto that street life. I was
Yeah.
onto that street life. I was getting picked up my freshman year in high school by guys that weren't in high school in these badass cars, and they're taking me out, and I'm staying up night after night after night, and and just doing stuff. Like, I'm talking like, I'm in these houses, or trap houses, or whatever you want to call it, man. And there's 5 to 6 guys, and like there's people getting beat up, and there's lots of money, lots of drugs, lots of guns, and people just getting checked, and all this stuff. And I'm right there, I'm just right there in it, and all night until the sun came up, and then I'd be like, I gotta go to school, and like, I go to school,
I got a
I go to
test.
school,
I got
and
a
I just
test to take, man. I got to, that's so
I,
crazy,
I,
man.
I don't even know if it was ever a test or anything like that. I think maybe I was just so lit from staying up there all night and doing all
Yeah.
this. And this was before like that crystal. This is like that P2P cat, this like that biker dope. This was like that speed was just coming out. So this is like that, crank, that little
Yeah,
prankster
crank.
gangster stuff, going on, just coming out of your pores and stuff,
Damn.
and by the time I was 15, 16 years old, I dropped out of high school. I just stopped going. My mom gets out of jail, and all of a sudden I tell her that she doesn't need to buy her stuff, from anybody else, but she's like, I got it now, and that my stuff's better.
Oh, wow.
And I just, I'm out there, and I used to run through all these apartments out there in my hometown, and just selling 20s, making everything, trying to making everything 20s, man, and just running through it, riding my bicycle up and down the streets and doing all this stuff. And then I get me this car, I got this beat up old car from a dope deal, and that's where all my tickets started coming from now, so now I'm like, 16 years old in this beat up 1977, Toyota Celica coupe, and I'm out, joyriding cars, and staying all these other places. I'm just out running amok, dude, constantly, and
Yeah.
by the time I'm in my early 20s, dude, I get that first taste. I go to county jail. I go to a little stay at NYA. I go to get a couple stays in the county jail, and then all of a sudden I go to the big house. I go to the penitentiary, and
What were the
and I
little
was
ones
there, and
for?
I
Just
got
like
brought out,
just like drug charges or fighting, stuff like that. Just
GTA, dude. I got picked up in a stolen car. I was
gotcha.
out joyriding. I got picked up. GTA was my first case. I go in, and then after that, I get picked up in a little like 16 with half case on that, and then And then, and like something happened. I went in, you meet, it was, 8:20, a quick little turnaround. And then, I immediately got busted right after that. I got out and I was running around, and, they got me for, something like 30 counts of, stolen cars. They got me for intent to manufacture, possession of weapons. They got me, a gang association, and they get me,
It's a
and they
lot of
get me,
stuff.
with sales.
Yeah.
It's all kinds of stuff, and a lot of it didn't stick, but they pick you up for a lot of that stuff,
So what
and I end
happened
up
when
on
you
a
finally
level
went
4
in?
yard.
What happened when you finally went into prison?
I went into prison, and I just met bigger and better guys, dude. Like I went into the prison system. The thing about me in prison is I didn't in the beginning I wasn't drinking and using. Like,
Yeah.
Christmas would come around. We have a jar of Pruno. I do that. Every now and then some. I had like a good month roll of like Wellbutrin and Seroquel. Like run inside there, but like. We're smoking cigarettes. I'm in the penitentiary. We're smoking cigarettes. Weights just got off. I'm on a 4 yard. I met these older guys, and I just sort of like, they're just teaching me. I'm just like standing there observing, man.
Yeah.
I'm just observing everything that's going on, and I get out, man, and a couple guys get out, follow me out. We all meet up, and we start going out there and doing, and it's bigger and better, because now it seems like I met guys from like the San Fernando Valley, and I'm in Antelope Valley, and so now it's like just a bigger spread, but the thing is, like me, and is like I can't. I'm caught, man. Like I used to think, man. I'd be able to. That's whatever term I had in the beginning. I'd be able to stay clean and sober, and I would, like but as soon as I got out, man, like that, the minute I got from that, not even like from the prison to the bus station, like that, I get to that bus station wherever I was at, man, and the first thing I do is I would grab a bottle, man. I grab a 40, I grab a
Wow.
22. I would sit there and I drank it, man. Like I celebrate me getting out, like,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter, like and I felt like everything but free. Like I held everything in there, you know what I'm saying? And there was times too. I mean, I'd be in there, maybe I smoke a joint here, I smoke a joint here, maybe, and play some handball for a day, type stuff inside. But like, man, I go from that bottle at the bus station. By the time I get to my hometown, man, I was getting loaded. I wouldn't check in, and I'd be off and running for the next 30 days, and I'd get picked up and violate.
All right,
So like a weapons charge and stuff like that, man. Proven I was, or how high I was, like, like I'd be in the wrong place at the wrong time, but a pocket knife be in the passenger seat, or in my possession of the person with me, and boom, I get a year flat violation. I go, boom, I get out from that. They come to my house, they find a knife, boom, a year flat violation. I get out, it's just like, that I get in that cycle, man. I just get in that cycle. Now I'm spending more time inside than I am on the outside, and every time I get to the out, man, like I literally would stay up for that, 14 to 30 days. Like I get out, man, I get loaded. I want to stop getting loaded. Like I go and I lose all the weight I just put on. My cheeks be all sucked in. I'd be running around with all the whole. I would just go out terrorizing, just like I didn't care, dude, and like no, and at the same time, man, I meet my daughter's mom, and I'm having a kid, and like, man, and all this stuff, man, and I couldn't even and I really thought, man, that those are those times when I'm really like, you know what, I'm gonna change my life for this little girl, I'm having a baby, I'm gonna change my life, and so now I'm wobbling the fence, like I'm working on one side, and then I'm hustling all night, and before you know it, it all just comes together. I'm working, and then I'm staying out all night, going back to work, and it's just like this cycle, man. And trying to provide, and the streets always won. The disease in the streets always won for me, man. No matter what, it didn't matter if I could start working, I could start looking good for parole. I have a residence, all this stuff, like everything. Like I start doing what I needed, but the streets always won because I always, man, I would fall off that fence and I go to the streets and I just start running, man, until I got busted. And it got shorter and shorter, man. And I just kept on. I kept, I catch another term or I catch another violation, but I was just stuck in that cycle for 15 years, man. And it wasn't until way later, man, and my mom, like my mom, my dad, like I didn't talk to my dad for 20 years. Like I started living that life that my dad, I pushed them away, my sisters pushed them away. My mom, since she was in that life, like she was present. She wrote me on the terms. She $20 here and there when she could. Like she do whatever, if I was whacked out of my mind and I needed something, I go to my mom's house, or like she always feed me a meal. She always she always had like a little bit of to get me well, you know what I'm saying? Like I was always in that cycle, man. And like the cries, man, the crimes get bigger, and the time gets longer,
How did you survive in prison, being able to take care of yourself, but also survive in the fact of not having to do anything to be incarcerated longer or for life, for say, you know what I'm saying? Like how did that work?
I mean, I survived. I honestly loved being in prison. And I loved being
you became
there.
Like used to it. So was that because you said that cycle too? It's just like you wanted to go back almost, is what I was thinking when you were saying that. It was like, okay,
I'd be out there. I was out there by the end of my rope, and I'd be hanging on by. I didn't have nothing. I'm just like, my disease would take over when I was out there on the streets, and I couldn't stop smoking. I couldn't stop for nothing or nobody, man. I was out there to feed my disease, and I would rob, steal, manipulate, do whatever I had to do to do that. I go into jail, man, and like I get a clear level head. I was able to say no, I wanted, because I wanted, like maybe I had a higher status there when I'm on these yards, and so like I didn't want to lose that head. I know that there's not enough, but I don't want to lose that clear headedness for doing the things we have to do in there, man. I always wanted to be on my toes and say if something kicked off, and and I survived, man. A lot of times a kitchen job, man, selling peanut butter and tortillas, coffee grounds during the lockdowns, I'm on a 3-yard or 4-yard, and I'm working in the kitchens, and we're on cell status, getting fed, we're taking these carts to the blocks, I'm hiding coffee grounds and tortillas and peanut butter, man, I'm gonna tell you, man, that's the number one, dude. Like just living large, man. That's it, dude. That's I think it's
I think it's such an example, like what you're describing right now, of how alcohol, drugs, addiction, it literally robs our spirit, like of the real person that God intended us to be in this world, in this life. Like it literally, it takes that. Because you just described that. You said when you're out on the street, you're literally out of your mind. You're robbing, you're stealing, you're addicted. You don't care about anything because you're just trying to maintain that high, or that 15, 30 days. And then you go back in and you kind of reset and you regain the mindset, and you're like, okay, you start to feel, okay, this is Garet. Like I'm me now, and you start to regain, and then boom, it's like you described it the vicious cycle. It is. It's just this cycle. But I really believe that. And I also think that there's some reasoning behind that, why there's a liquor store on every corner in every grocery store, why drugs are pushed all over into communities. Because if we can be separated from ourselves and our leaders as men, taking care of our families, our kids, working, entrepreneurship, all that stuff, that's a weak society right there too. So I don't know where I'm going with that, other than the fact of it is such a good example of how addiction literally robs us of the path that God potentially has us on. And I'm so happy to see, man, after what is that, 13, 11, 12 years now, you're on a new path,
I'm on a new path. I'm gonna tell you, man, that like when I used to think that I was even more like, you get out, man, and I was inside, like maybe you know, whoever I was when I was inside, I was like a different person. My level
Yeah.
headedness, you know, fighting, you know, just like the beast, dude. I get out and maybe I'd be a beast for the first couple of weeks, man, but I start using, man. I turn weak, man.
Mm.
I turn like into I just like I was just after a fix, man. I give you
Yeah.
the chain off my neck to get high, you know, like I rob you know a kid's mom, you know, like I didn't care, like I just needed
Yeah.
to get well, you know, like and then I came to the point, like my thing was is like when I got to a minimum yard, like I was like, man, I was like my goal in life was just to get to a minimum yard and be able to bring the drugs and everything in and sell them on the yard, you know. And
Mm.
here I am, I finally, you know, 10 years later, you know,
Damn.
different term, you know, points, same number, different term, points drop, points change, all this stuff. I'm on a hard 19 on a minimum yard, dude. And that this thing happens, dude, is I start bringing in stuff and then I told myself, like, you know, but now is tobacco's so huge, man. Like bringing
Mm.
tobacco in is just like a money maker. And I'm figuring, you know, you figure all this stuff out, man, because your head's clear, you're able to think, you're able to watch what's going on, dude. And I bring some and I bring some, you know, substances into the prison system, dude. And I
Yeah.
cool, man. I don't do it. My crimies show up, man. And up to this point, man, I never stuck a needle in my arm.
Mm.
Never, man. I'm bringing, you know, I never, man. And I was always like, I'll never be that bad. I'll never be that bad, dude. This last, you know, my last, you know, little term in prison, dude. You know, I bring some stuff in, the pipe breaks, you know, like
Oh
what, you
shit.
know, oh, and I and my next solution was like I'm just put me in my, you know, put it in my arm. And I thought, man,
Mm.
for sure that I'm just gonna keep this all inside the prison system, you know. I'm not, and by this time, you know, too, I was chipping away at heroin on the streets, like a little bit here, a little bit there, like because here all of a sudden I get out of prison and heroin's like it's a lot more people using heroin, man. And then the next thing I know, man, I go in there, I stick a needle in my arm, and I'm in prison, and I get out, man, and I was like, that was just something that was going to stay in there.
Yeah.
But man, I
Yeah.
get out to the street, and the next thing I know, man, I'm putting a needle in my arm, and I'm mixing heroin and meth, you know, and it's like I just got me there faster, you know.
Yeah.
And now I really just don't care. I really like when they talk about the selfish and self-centeredness and the isolation. Like my whole head game was just around more drugs,
Yeah.
more ways to get what I needed to be well, so I could live life.
So,
I wasn't caring about where my daughter was at or what she was doing, or and I really deep down wanted to see her.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
boy, I couldn't make it there. I couldn't make it there. I like my, you know, my mom, my family, like you know, all this stuff. Like I wanted to do right, man. You do want to do right, man. But I'm
Yeah.
telling you, man, that when that disease has a hold on you, man, there's no bets
Yeah.
are off, man.
So I want
You
to
know, and
I want to get to the part after the 15 years of like going in and out of that, like you said, that cycle. There had to have been something that changed. But before we get there, I want to ask you one thing, and you're free, obviously, to answer this or say I don't really want to get into that. I'm just curious, like how much corruption goes on in the correctional system in the state of California, or just general, like between the guard, because we hear a lot about that. You hear it on podcasts, you hear it on TV shows, you talk to people, there's guards bringing things in, all that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of curious firsthand from your perspective, like what did that look like?
Shit, that's like the ultimate goal in there when you're doing time, man, is to flip somebody, you know, flip a young buck in there, you know, and I believe that I just, you know, in those times, I believe it was, you know, I believe it was strong. You know, I don't think I was the only one there. It's strong in there. You
Yeah.
know, but not every time did I have to do it. I didn't. Not every time did I have to flip them. But you do enough time in one spot with one person, man, and and after years or a year and a half or 2 years go by, and you got the same guard, man. They just, you know, it's like, you know, your relation. That's why they're always
Yeah.
switching them around. But man, sometimes it doesn't happen, and you know, and our job, man, our whole life, man, we're out there on these streets, and then we're conniving, manipulative, you know, and we're gonna
Yeah.
find, you know, we find it, you find a way, you know, and
So you're building a
I
relationship
think
in a
there's a lot,
sense, and you're you know,
yeah,
you're building up
yeah,
trust, and that, you know, and then at whatever point
yeah.
when you feel that that's can be used to your advantage than
At one
going.
time, it started like this, dude. I had a CO that would wake me up at 3:30 in the morning, or 3:30 in the morning every single day, man. And he used to smoke outside before he came into our block, and so, and then I used to sit there and watch it. I'd be out in the room, and and he'd sit there, and I'd be waiting to get escorted over to the chow hall, and I see this pack of cigarettes in his pocket all the time, bro. You know what I'm saying? And it just started, and he was like, if you can guess them. I'll give you one, and then from that point, I saw it. I was picking up those snipes in the front and rolling them up in smoke. I already knew what you smoked,
Yeah.
The next thing you know, he's throwing lit ones underneath my cell door, and it just escalates from that, dude. And you just build it, man. It just builds, man. It just builds.
So let's kind of shift gears here, and thank you too for sharing some of that. Like that, it's crazy, man. Like I know there's the 15 years. I'm sure there's a lot more stuff, but I also want to focus and hear more. Like what? So after going in and out that many times, and it's that cycle like you described, what was it the final time that actually changed for you? And I really want to hear this because I have friends who have been stuck in similar cycles, and they're in, they're out, they're in, out. And like you described with your daughter, like one of my buddies in particularly, I know he's a good dude, and I know that he wants help, and I know he wants to stay clean, and he doesn't want to go back in, but it's that cycle sometimes. So what was it for you that finally did it, that made you change?
I think I got exhausted on all. I remember like in your 20s, or when I was 16 and 18, or in my early 20s and stuff like that, man. And you see these OGs up there still in the game, still active, doing all this stuff. I remember, man, like I was just like I was beat down, man. I was just like on the inside. I went to a treatment center, man, and I loved it, dude. I got sent on I got sent over to a treatment center. I was there, like I had so many different. I had like hold LA County, this hold, but parole hold, and they had me holding up at this, and I had to finish out one to go do this other type thing, and I got a little taste of recovery, man.
Yeah.
And and it's something planted a seed when I was at this place, and I went out, and I went to court, and I got as the first time ever in my life that I went through the front of the courthouse, went to a court date. I got reprimanded there, and I remember sitting inside the transfer tank to go upstairs to downstairs, and I was like, it was just like something. I was just tired, man. It was just like, man, God, I'm tired of this,
exhausted.
Man. Like it was exhausting, and it was like an honest talk that I had with myself, man, of how tired I really was about what I was doing, and how it like what something has to change, dude, because my terms ain't getting less, they're getting more. They're I'm doing 3, 7, and 3 and 7 twice, and then on top of that, what else do I got? You know what I'm saying? And then 7 ain't getting, and like that pain, you're just like, damn, something got to give. I put on that mask, I go back downstairs, and I go through another violation. I get out, man, and I'm immediately, man, I pick up, dude. I pick up, man. I'm out for not even 5 days, dude. And I picked up, man. I got loaded. I'm facing like 15, plus, all because a cop reached in my backpack, and I didn't have no caps on my syringes, and he stabbed himself with one of the caps, and now it's assault on an officer, and it's like good cop, bad cop. I'm getting roughed house. It was not a good experience on my end. They don't like that. They hate guys, and so I'm getting the run around at 1, 2 in the morning. It was just bad, man, and I remember, man, I finished this time, and I get back out. I use again, and on February 14th of 2013. I've been out for 45 days. I got track marks from my legs up to my neck, all the way down my arms. I can't keep the heroin and the meth out of my system. I'm turning these bathrooms, the AMPMs and the Chevron bathrooms, into my prison cell. I'm getting butt naked, getting loaded, doing my laundry, spinning line, like just in there, just like living this world. Half the time I'm probably sitting there with my ear on the door listening, because I'm thinking the cops are outside, and I got to shake it off, and and all this stuff. And and on Valentine's Day morning, dude, I'm in this shootout, man. This guy's shooting at me. I'm out doing what we do on the streets, and I had no fear of death or wanting to. Like, I wish a bullet would catch me. That's the point I get to. Is like I wish I go out like this. Like I wish I just like take me. Like I wish, because like all the drills and all that. I just wish I get taken out, man. But I called my mom. That's who all those gangsters calling me in trouble. I'm like, Mom, like I need my this and that, and I get loaded with my mom. She drops me off at a liquor store. And I'm at the liquor store. I get me a vodka, and I go and get loaded. I mix with vodka and I speed and the heroin all together, and I shoot 100 cc's. I get stupid and I go out and I take care of this stuff, dude. And as I'm getting ready to do this, man, the cops they came in every door, every window, laid me on the ground, arrested me one more time, man. I go to the county, man, and since I graduated this last program, they sent me to another one, dude. On March 17th of 2013. I don't count my county jail time because I was in there eating happy cards, drinking hand sanitizer. Like I was in there, like I didn't care, like any day not to feel like this, right? Like I'm a ruin. I'm in the bathroom in the LA County jail with the bags of hand sanitizer with top ramen and a styrofoam comp doing shots, like just to change. I'm passing, doing pass bys in the hallways of the happy card and just eating a whole quarter chunk of a card and just being like done for the next week and a half inside this miserable, bro. Like can't sleep, you're just like, oh my God, and I go to parole board and they're like, yeah, we're gonna send you this program, man. And up to this point in my life, dude, like I really didn't care. Like I knew deep down, and there has to be something different, man. And there was nothing. Like people were telling me, you need to change your life, you need to do something different. Like I'm like, oh, here I am, like going. I'm just thinking that I'm gonna go to this other place. It's a get out of jail free card. It's a whole lot better than doing a violation inside the county jail or something. I get to this program, dude. I'm sitting there with everything I own. I got my clear blue jumpsuit, my bright green boxers, my 5 to Life shower shoes. I got a clear manila envelope with a clear manila bag with envelopes and tooth powder and toothpaste in it, dude. I got a couple booking numbers off these girls that were on the bus. I'm gonna write them, and I'm sitting there, dude, in that position with my head's like this, and I'm my elbows on my knees. I'm in this lobby of this treatment center. There must have been like 15 of us, and I look up as this door opens, man, and this guy I know, dude. This guy I knew from the streets, and I knew from jail, and I knew, like we ran together, man, and his name's Levi, man, and Levi sees me, man, and I don't even say nothing, like I just stood up, dude, and he's like, hey, big bro, he's like, so good to see you, man, and he came over to me, man, and he gave me this big old hug, man.
Oh wow.
And like I was in a battle. I was in this battle between my head and my heart right now, dude. I'm in the battle because I want to go. If the guy would have stood up or something like that, I would have been off and running, man. And he came over to me, man, and he was like, "Man, I really hope you stay." And it was something about that hug and the way he said that, man, that where I was in that front lobby, that changed my perception of where I was at and what I was doing and all this stuff. And I went into this office of this treatment center, man, to do this intake, and this lady was sitting there, and she was like, "I'll give you 24 hours," and I was like, "All right," and it was like the very first time ever in my life that I made that decision. It wasn't the court system. It wasn't this doing this or that parole or courts or my parents or anything like that. It was Garet 100% made a decision himself, dude. I walked in there and I said I would stay, and that moment, man, that surrender. That right there, making that decision, dude, for yourself, dude, not because I have to, not because I not because of my kid or for a relationship or for a job or for parole. It was because Garet wanted something deep down inside. Garet wanted change, and I knew that, man. I was stripped down of everything in my life, dude. I have nothing, bro. I'm just a homeless junkie out there on the streets, a homeless junkie gangbanger out there on the streets, bro, just like terrorizing, and here I am at this treatment center, dog, man. And I don't know if it was God's intervention or was something, but it was magic. It was in that hug. I always talk about, man. There's magic in the hug for the person who's in that place. He's stuck in the middle between his heart and his head. We get stuck right there. We don't know, like, emotions are involved, or we want to do it for the right reasons, man. And the right reasons, we have to do it for ourselves, man. And I walked in there, man, and he'd say, "Hey, Garet, He says, I'm on my 2-hour pass right now. I'm gonna go to the gym. We go hang out in front of Walmart. I'll be back for, chow, and I hope to see you there, man. And I just stayed. I was in treatment for the next 18 months, dude.
Wow.
And I'm gonna tell you, everything. People, all the stuff all the stuff that people look at my life and you don't think this. I'm talking like I had to get my teeth redone. I had to build those relationships. I had all this negativity and hate because of the lifestyle I was losing on my social media. So I had to quickly get rid of that. So my dad would start talking to me. My daughter would start talking to me. I sort of had to disengage from my mom for a year. I talked to her, but I disengaged, man. Sometimes the ones we love the most are the ones we have to stay away from, and so I had to get away from that little bit of relationship we had right there, and I just stayed at this treatment center, man. And I did the number one thing that I never did before. I did what they told me to do, man. I just followed the instructions.
Yeah.
I followed the instructions that were given, dude. I didn't deviate. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. Like there was something inside of me that that was just done, dude. I was done on all levels of the playing field. I was leveled out. Like I'm done. Like I can't go in there and surrender one day and then the next day be taking, and then the next day taking my will back and being like, nah, I'm gonna make this miserable. Like my stay there was like 100%, dude. It was not miserable in any way, man, because I just followed instructions, man. And the next thing I met, dude, is I met this counselor. Her name was Dolores Thomas, dude. I to this day, she was like my angel, my penguin, like whatever it was, man. I gave her the hardest time, man. I was hard headed. You're still bad. I want to go out and see people and see my daughter at 30 days, but the main thing still to this day, man, is I just stayed busy.
Yeah.
I just stayed busy, man. And to this day, man, I'm still busy in Alcoholics Anonymous or in my recovery, bro. I'm just as busy as I was then. I'm just as busy now, man, with the service commitments and helping people and like being like, you have to stay connected, man. That connection, I believe that connection, I got like a good little like thing when I was in treatment. I'm talking like I still have all my key tags that I got. There's 30, 60, like for a guy that never achieved nothing or never been nowhere, like getting that 30 days, 60 days, 90 days key tags, man. Those I held on to those moments, man, those accomplishments. And I started taking care of all those traffic tickets. I started talking to like the family again. I started doing all this. And the main thing is, dude, as I got me a job through an agency, and I started getting my self-worth back, and I started being accountable, and I started doing and I just started figuring stuff out, man. You don't need to take care of it all at once, man. Like I remember having a list of things I needed to get done, and I was overwhelmed by looking at this list, thinking, man, how am I going to do DUI, Caltrans, community service? I got to work, I got to do all this stuff, and I got to go to be like how and the sponsor, man, who was just like, man, you just got to do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. It's as simple as that sometimes, man. We can't overwhelm our stuff with everything on our plate, man. And sometimes you just got to knock it out one thing at a time. What can I do today? Yeah. And I just started knocking stuff out, man. And I graduated. It was the first time I ever completed something. I graduated. I got my first steak and lobster dinner. Like I never ate steak and lobster. I never I don't know how to eat it, dog. I don't even know how to eat it, dude. Yeah. I don't even know how to. I don't even know like what medium well. Like how do I want a steak? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I don't know none of this stuff. I don't know how to order from Starbucks. I don't know how. I just like coffee. I don't know all this other stuff. Like I didn't know all this stuff, man. And I learned all this stuff by other people who started living a little better than me, man. Mm-hmm. And after 18 months, I left that treatment center, man. I got out from underneath this umbrella. By this time, I'm talking to my dad and my daughter for like the 6 months, dude. And I started working at a job, and I moved out to Santa Clarita. And the very first thing I did, man, the very first thing I did when I moved out to Santa Clarita is I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, dude. Yeah. I knew where my home group was. I knew a person out there. I knew where a home group was. And my first thing I did, like that day, I exit plan. I did everything the way they told me, man, and it worked. Yeah. I listened, and it worked. It's funny how you said like how you if we even back up, but you just said it again. You said, man, the one thing I did is I listened, and basically
You know, a lot of the time we're our own worst enemy. Like we don't want to listen to anyone, especially as grown men. Don't tell me what to do. Like no grown man wants to be told what to do. That's a really hard thing. Pride, ego, all that stuff. But when we're desperate enough and when we're hurting enough, when we're exhausted enough, a lot of time that's what it takes to surrender to God and to the process. And so I love to hear your process through that. But for someone out there listening right now, who's maybe struggling or they're trying to find their path, they want to stop, they're just not sure. Like if you had to pick like the top 3 things, just 3 things that have been foundational that you still continue to do. And I think you just kind of mentioned one of them, the meetings. You got plugged into a home group. I know that's probably going to be huge, but what are the couple for you that are just imperative and they're non-negotiables that you might be able to share with someone out there?
I gotta say, man, like I think the training ground it's. I got out of that treatment center, and what it did is it really helped me get it really helped me get a clear head. It really helped me get like take care of the wreckage of my past, and I went through the steps, and I had a sponsor, and I sort of get rid of clearing that I always talk about that distance between the head and the heart, man, and that imperative. There's 3 things, man. Is still that triangle, man. That's recovery, unity, and service, man. To this day, man. Without those, like when anytime I'm feeling like I'm taking my will back or anything like that, like sometimes I just have to stop and I got to think that what part of that triangle am I not working, dude? Is my unity, service, and recovery, bro. Am I helping other people? Am I going to a meetings? Am I so freely giving my time to the one thing that saved my life? Am I able to now that my life is saved and I got a life worth living? Am I still like, damn, like I still gotta like think about God? God's a big part of this, man. I didn't come, man. I didn't come. Like I was too big for God and all that stuff. When I got here and I'm from prison, like it wasn't like, prayer circles and God and all, like I wasn't all that stuff, man. And it took me a minute to be able to develop a relationship with God, man, but like I'm gonna tell you, I sure did find God in the 12-step process. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad that when something big happened in my life, I wasn't having to find God then, that I already found God, you know what I'm saying? And so like God, unity and service, man. Like you got to stay connected in that triangle, man. And to this day, man, life. A big thing is like I started living a life of recovery, man. Like the accountability to my commitments, the being able to the family. I got from the rooms, I got that. That was like my first family. Like learning how to treat people, how to talk to people, how to show up, how to be accountable, how to do all this stuff, and then as time goes by and all this stuff, man, I got me a life, and I can't get my life and my recovery mixed up, man. It's 2 different things, man. And like I like my program, like a program for living that works for everything is my program. That means I still, regardless of my job or my relationship or my house or my income or anything like that, I think that is very important to say, for me, a real one. I'm a real. They talk about me in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, dude. Like I still and we're not perfect, but it still crops up, man. The road gets narrower, but like if I'm not living, man, if I'm not going to meetings, it's like all of a sudden like like you get out and like you might. You're going to a meeting every day, and then you get a relationship. You're going to a meeting every 3 days, and then you get your job, and you find yourself only going to 1 meeting a week, or maybe 1 meeting every 2 weeks. Like you really stop helping people. Like you start living backwards, man. I seen what happened to some of those people, because that's what happened to my friend Levi, man. I watched Levi get all that stuff, man. I watched Levi have one, like you can't put nobody on a pedestal here, man. I give credit to the people who are on the double digits, single digits that are just working the program, man. That's the one thing that can't stop, man. As I can't stop working the program, whatever that program may look like, man. We can't stop that 12-step process,
I love it, man.
The life is life. Life. This 12-step process is that unity, service, and God is what helps me live the life I have today. And I got to make sure I paid my dues.
So I love that, bro. And thank you. I mean, those are just imperative. And I love that you mentioned God in there. it's just, that's so important to me. And I know to so many else out there, you know, when we're kind of stuck in this world, man, and it's a crazy world at that. I want to encourage folks out there, just kind of in honor of a part of Garet's story right now that's listening, man, go hug somebody today. Go give someone a big ass hug. Because when you said the magic of a hug, man, that changed everything for you in that moment, in that one moment. It sounded like to me, you were literally like a split second away from bolting out that door, and who knows where the heck you would be today. So I love that part of your story, man. It's probably one of my favorite parts. And so, man, those out there listening, man, somebody needs a hug today. Go hug somebody, or maybe you need a hug, man. Hug somebody for that too. But man, I just really appreciate you coming on. Give somebody a hug you don't know today, man. Yeah, that's perfect, man. Yeah. A stranger or something, you know, like why not?
Hey,
you know,
man, I know I met many times I've been at meetings and stuff, man, and we always hug those people we know and all those stuff, man. But those people are in the darkness or in the back of the room, man. Sometimes they're sitting there like, damn, we got these big old groups. We have all these groups and we have all these little things going on, man, and we forget about these people on the sidelines, man. And they, you know, they're just one decision away because they're not feeling part of. They're not feeling like, you know, they're not feeling like the rest of us, happy, joyous, and free. They think they're, you know. And I just have to, man, I have to sit there and I have to give people a hug and let them know, man, that I hope you just stay.
Yeah,
I hope you just stay, man. That's it, man. Good. I hope you just stay. You know?
Yep. Well, we're gonna wrap up, man. I appreciate you coming on today, Garet. It is really great to meet you. Just before we do that, any last pieces of advice or anything you want to add to those out there listening right now?
Man, if anybody has if anybody's out there and, you know, my story is, you know, is something that has touched you and, or, you know, like, you know, you relate, man, look me up, go to my social media, you know, send me a message, and just let me know if there's anything I can do to help, man. Cause I love helping people, man. And, I only got one that's, man, the only message I ever got, man, is that, you know, stay connected into a program of recovery, man, and your life will unfold, man, beyond your wildest dreams, man.
Oh, I love it, man. Thanks so much, bro, for that. That's good stuff. And we'll put the link to your Instagram at Garet Mclendon. It'll be in the show notes. So if you're listening to this right now and you want to shoot Garet a message, all you got to do is look in the show notes there, and you can click on that. It'll take you right there. Garet, it's been great to chat with you today, man. I appreciate you coming on. And if you're listening right now, thank you again for tuning in over, man, the last 10, 11 years, just continuing to do this crap, man. Another new year, 2025. So I appreciate y'all very, very much. If you need any resources, you can go to thatsoberguy.com. And man, give somebody a hug today, man. I love that. Good stuff. Keep your blood clean. All right, man. Good stuff, bro.